Huawei's sub-brand Honor is kicking off the new year with the release of its flagship smartphone in the Honor View20. Sure, it may be a close relative to the Huawei Mate 20 and Mate 20 Pro, but where it truly makes its mark is in its far more forgiving price point. Now, if you thought that the OnePlus 6T was a whole lot of bang for the buck, then you'll probably think the same about the Honor View20. The design is hypnotic, and it really stands out. That's because it's marketed as the world's first smartphone to employ nanolithography, a technique that produces its unique look. Now, the Honor View20 has a radiant backside, and it stands out with its gleaming V-shape effect. If you're passionately against notches of any variety, then you'll be pleased by Honor's hole-punch display implementation. There's a tiny hole tucked into the upper left corner of the display, and it stows away the front-facing camera. It's a step in the right direction because it's not as obtrusive as some of the other notches in other phones, and it also doesn't impede the way notifications are displayed. Beyond that, there isn't much to complain about the display's quality. It's detailed, visible enough outdoors, and even has some decent viewing angles. However, it does exhibit a colder color temperature by default, but this can be adjusted in the settings. It's a decent looking display by today's standards, but it trails some of the eye-catching displays seen in other flagship smartphones. The interface that's running here is Magic UI 2.0.1 and it's running on top of Android 9.0 Pie. It's merely a rebranded version of Huawei's latest Emotion UI that's running on its flagship products. In fact, it's almost tough to tell the difference between the two, even though the Honor View20's experience definitely has a lot to offer for the average user. It still lacks the visual polish that makes other interfaces on other phones attractive. Still, we'll gladly accept the rich productivity value that the software offers, like the extended desktop experience when you connect the phone to an external display. In essence, you can transform the phone into a portable on-the-go desktop machine that's capable of running just about every app on the phone in its desktop mirror mode. The Honor View20 leverages the same Kirin 980 chipset found in the Huawei Mate 20 and Mate 20 Pro. Now that's notable because of the lower price point that the View20 is targeting. And guess what? It packs a punch because it can handle just about everything we dish at it. It may not exhibit the same level of fluidness with navigation that's evident with the latest Pixels or iPhones, but it's still more than acceptable. Now it looks like the Honor View20 is bringing up the megapixel conversation again with its 48 megapixel rear camera and 25 megapixel front-facing one. But there's a lot more technology involved here to paint a convincing picture for its implementation. At the core of the rear camera, there's a Sony IMX 586 stacked CMOS image sensor, which features 48 effective megapixels on a half-inch sensor. The secondary 3D camera, which works by emitting and picking up light beams of infrared light, is used for advanced depth and distance sensing. This not only helps with focusing in low-light situations, but also enables those portrait and aperture effects found on other phones. There's no arguing about the usefulness of capturing 48 megapixel snapshots, but at the end of the day, those are only slightly better in terms of quality than the 12 megapixel alternative samples, and they're pretty much on par with the 12 megapixel cameras on other high-end smartphones. Don't get us wrong, the camera's performance is still pretty good, especially when AI photography is enabled. We really like how it boosts shadows, the contrast, saturation, and highlights to draw out more of the details that are sometimes lost. However, when we compare the 48 megapixel AI ultra clarity and 12 megapixel sample side by side, there's not a substantial improvement with clarity or details. Now, don't think for a moment that the camera's a wash. It's far from that because it still proves to be quite favorable, producing sufficient details and boosting colors when leveraging AI photography. It even shows its superiority under low light, as it minimizes noise in the shadows. We really like how its dedicated night mode delivers even better results. And what about the 25 megapixel front-facing camera's performance? It captures strong details under sunny conditions, but we find it on the softer side under artificial lighting. Capable of capturing video in 4K UHD resolution, the camera's performance is pretty good, with one distraction. That's the delayed effect that the electronic image stabilization produces. It's kind of pronounced and causes this somewhat jittery effect as we're filming, but the actual footage is stabilized really well. Under low light, the presence of noise becomes more overpowering. It's neither perfect nor downright awful. The call quality of the Honor View20 is acceptable enough to carry conversations, but voices through the earpiece have a little bit of distortion with them. Colors are still discernible, just as long as there isn't a ton of ambient noise around. much like its relative in the Huawei Mate 20, the Honor View20 is also packing a sizable 4000 mAh battery within its chassis. Now, in our daily experience, we're beyond satisfied by its longevity, getting down to about 40% on most nights. Over on the recharge side, it may not be as quick as other phones, but requiring 120 minutes to charge isn't bad either given the cell's capacity. What's interesting is Honor's claim for the View20 reaching a 55% charge level with 30 minutes of charging. In our testing, it required 58 minutes to reach that 55% mark. The Honor View20 is exactly where it needs to be, competing in the same affordable flagship range where OnePlus has found success in the last few years. The Honor View20 is a fantastic rival that boasts an attractive premium design combined with solid all-around performance. Its biggest drawback, from a US buyer's perspective at least, would be that for now, the phone isn't officially available in the US. The in-screen fingerprint sensor of the OnePlus 6T is cool and forward-thinking, but we find the Honor View20 offers an equally complete package with its inclusion of the headphone jack, the hole punch display, the IR blaster, and extended desktop experience. For about the same price you'd pay for the OnePlus 6T, you're getting more features included with the Honor View20. It's a good phone to snag if you don't have the disposable income to spend on those ultra-premium smartphones around the $1,000 mark.